All right. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another week of coffee and cigars here on the Thursday Night Hang. How's it going? Hope you're doing well. If you're just joining us for the very first time, this is the Thursday Night Hang, the Owner Live channel. We come here Thursday evenings, 8 p.m. Eastern Time to talk coffee and cigars. So hope you're doing well. We're here tonight. We're going to be having some coffee and a cigar. Tonight's cigar is going to be the Runaway Felix from Privada Cigars. Thank you very much to Mom for giving me one of those to try. It looks really interesting. And we're going to have some coffee from my shop, Spro. We're going to be having some of the Annabelle Lee, one of my favorites. That's just a little bit of seasonal coffee. Finishing the water in here. Next week, we're going to let you know that next week we're going to be on the road again. We're heading down to Capital Cigar next Thursday, March 13th, to hang out with Sean Coleman for the RoMa Craft event that's happening down there. So, Mish, if you have the time to come join us, come down there. We'll be there all afternoon and into the evening. Mom, how are you, man? Good to see you. How's everything? How's everything? Hope everything's going well. All right, so we got our coffee. We're going to do a little bit similar to what we did last week. We're not going to boil the water anymore. That's boiling the water is getting to be passe, right? So we've got our coffee here ground, 24 grams of coffee, all nicely ground. Look at that. Very lovely, very lovely. And we're going to do the Clever brewing today with the Clever here. So we're going to get that ready. Tilt down a little bit. George, how are you? Good to see you. Oh, I forgot this one. We also can do this. I'm so used to the morning stream where we don't have that functionality. All right, so this is the Clever. The Clever is a full immersion type of brewer that allows us to immerse the coffee like a French press, but a little bit better. So we've got that here, and we're going to use a Melita #4 filter. So how this works, if you're not familiar with it, it's a one-way valve here at the bottom. When you place this on top of a cup, the valve opens and the liquid pours through. But while there's nothing on that, it closes and will hold the liquid in the coffee, the liquid in the brewer. We just need to put a filter. So we've got a Melita #4 filter here. So we're going to put that up, and George says, happy to see the Clever brewer back in action. Yeah, it's a good one. But like these little ones, I like for it to sit back and. Oh, Rusty said, "Oh, Rusty, what's going on, man? From the Peanut Gallery, how you doing? How you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you." So I like to fold these seams, right? There's seams on here, so I like to fold the seams over, just so that it sits more comfortably inside the brewer. That's really about it. And then we're gonna take our 24 grams, put that in here. That's gonna make it all like nice and level. Athens with us. What's going on, man? How are you doing? Good to see you tonight. Good to see you. And then from here, it's really simple. We're just going to take our hot water. This is 12 ounces of hot water. So everything is really a good, easy way to do it. So we're going to pour that in. 3 minutes, 25 seconds. And I'm just going to give it a little bit of a shake to get the water or the coffee. I'm going to make sure that all the coffee is wet. Oops. And make sure it's all nice and wet so that it will be fully extracted. I'm also making a mess. I'm in the garage again, and it's a little bit messy here today because I've been working in the garage, and I have not. Now we're going to add it all the way up. We've had about 30 seconds of steeping time. So like I said, this holds about 12 ounces of water, so we don't really even need to worry. We just put that on there, put the lid on, and now we just leave it alone. We leave it alone and let it do its thing. Basically, it's just steeping. We're going to let it steep for about 3 minutes. So we're going to bring it to about, on my show time, we're going to bring it to 6 minutes, 30 seconds. And then we're going to open up the valve by placing this on our cup. This will be our brew cup. And yeah, here's something, by the way. I'm using this in a thermal. If you ever do this, like put hot water in a thermal container and then you leave it out, don't leave it out, right? I was thinking a few weeks ago when we did the live stream, and I did something very similar where I filled this Stanley with hot water. And then I was like, oh, instead of me like drinking it, I'm just going to wait till it cools down and then I'm going to drink it as cold water. Well, as it chilled here in the garage over how many days, it created a vacuum and I can no longer get this to open. Like it is not going to open. Like it is now vacuum sealed and I can't break the seal. So I'm presuming that will happen with this. So be careful with that if you want to do this kind of thing. What I really need to do probably is take this, put it in a water bath, heat it up, and then over time it'll maybe heat, or maybe put it into like a thermal circulating bath. And then maybe over a day it'll heat up the liquid in here, and then eventually we'll release it. So live and learn, live and learn, live and learn, right? Live and learn, live and learn. George asking, how's the temp in the garage tonight? It's chilly. It's chilly. It's not terribly cold. But not bad. I got the heater running, right? There's the heater. So it's not terrible, but it's not terrible. It's not terrible at all. All right, so we have about 6 minutes, 22 seconds. So we're gonna take this, we're gonna put this here. And now it's going to flow through, right? You can see it flowing through. It's just flowing through. And it's brewing the coffee. I mean, it's so easy to brew. It's really the way that I like to brew. Most of the time, if I'm brewing coffee like in the morning for breakfast, I will use this because it requires very little attention from me to do anything. And it makes really lovely coffee, especially if I'm like preparing breakfast and I just want to sling it all out because I like to bring everything to the table at once. I can set this up, have it ready, coffee's all in there, and then right at the right moment, hit it with the hot water, let it run its 3-4 minutes because it's going to have about a minute of fall time here. So we're probably like, it's going to be a little bit longer than a minute because the coffee's a little bit on the finer side, right? A little bit on the finer side. So yeah. Rusty says, or have it next to the heater and see if it opens by the time. Oh, okay, that's a good idea. I will put that over here closer to the heater. I don't think it's going to be enough to heat the interior. There's that. I put it right there. I don't think it's going to have to heat the interior of the liquid. So actually, I think that I have 2 of them that are like this. Both of my Stanleys, I did the same thing, and I can't remove the lid. It's like, what was I thinking? I wasn't thinking at all. Okay, so there it is. We're finished with this. Now I'm going to put this over here, off to the side. We've got our elixir all ready to go. Nice and black. When this coffee is hot, it's got good forward bitters. Like it's nice and bitter and brooding. It's like the bitterness of love. That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. Annabelle Lee is my Valentine's coffee, meant to be bitter and brooding, resentful, right? Okay, so to the cigar. So like I said, tonight's cigar is something called what do we call it? Runaway Felix from Privada Cigar. And as you can see, it's got like a Felix the cat on here. Kind of a stylized version of Felix the cat. Or maybe this is like an old school, like early Felix the cat, like when it first came out, or whatever, the 1920s. Maybe this is how Felix looked. I don't recall Felix looking like this. By the time I was a child, or by the time I existed on this planet, Felix looked a little bit different than this. George asks, isn't the interior mug metallic? It is. It is a little bit. It is metallic. It is a metallic mug. So what is this? This is so all I know, there's so little information. The thing about Privada, right, that kind of irritates me is that they don't really give you much information. I need my pencil. They don't really give you much information about the cigar. So it's like all I found was like a couple people posting pictures of it online, and then I found this thing from a Instagram account called My 2 Cents on Whiskey, The November subscription, this came out 66 weeks ago, so over a year ago. And so it came out with their November 2023 collection. And this is a Felix, called the Felix, Runaway Felix, 6x52, age 4 years. That's it, age 4 years. Who knows what it is? Who knows what's in here? We're going to try it out. Thank you, Mom. I appreciate this very much. George says, no, it's a Macy's parade balloon. Oh, that would make sense. Oh, that's why there's a building here. Ah, and there's some ropes. Oh, okay, gotcha. Felix never really looked like that, but I also figured that's Privada's technique to avoid lawsuits. Oh, yeah, that's okay. That's kind of clever. I like that. I wasn't really seeing what those were. I was wondering what that stuff is. Okay, so let's take it out of our. Are you guys all smoking? What are you smoking? And are you guys outside? Let me know. Let me know. Interested to know, how is the weather where you are in the world? Is there any yellowing? Nope, no yellowing. So lighter wrapper. So maybe like a Connecticut type of wrapper. Like it's pretty light looking. But okay, so now that you've pointed that out, George, I kind of dig the band. I kind of dig the band. I'm digging on the band. Right. Mom says I'll try to find the info. Thank you. I mean, if you find it, great. If not, we're just gonna roll with it. Light manure. Oh no, a medium manure. Very manure. Like sometimes you get it really sweet manure, barnyard kind of thing. This is very manure, like a sour manure. All right, that's interesting. Let's do some cutting here with our El Cheapo. What is this cutter? This cutter is, this is a faders cutter. Faders, old school faders, a Baltimore cutter. Fader since, was it 1891? No longer. It lasted over 100 years and then collapsed in 2021, I think it was, 2019. Or not collapsed, it finally succumbed. Okay, cutting that off. There's our cut. Look at that. Look at that professional cut, professional. We're gonna rotate that. George says that he's having the Olmec on the balcony. Nice. How are you dealing out there? I'd like it to be 10 degrees warmer, but nothing compared to, no doubt about that. I'm waiting for it to get a little bit warmer because I was thinking I was going to go and burn, start a fire tonight and burn the cutoffs that I have here in the workshop and I'm in the garage. And I'm like, oh man, it's just still too cold. I'm like, I don't feel like sitting outside. Okay, so let's do some dry tasting. Draw's a little bit tight. Very light tetra fish food, but nothing really that heavy. No real discernible like flavors necessarily, right? It's okay. That's we're pretty light there. Fragrance is kind of manurish. Cold draw is kind of tight. I'm gonna say 775. Very good. Good. Very good. Let's light it up. We're gonna use our Tatuaje lighter here. Devin says, hey all, I'm smoking the Padron number 47 tonight with the flex. Padron 47 flexing hard there, Devin, down in Florida. George says that fish food isn't exactly a positive cold. We'll find out. Mm. Despite the fish food, there were some pleasant nostril inhalations during the light. Rusty says, I found the info from Privada, body rich undertones of prunes. All right, prunes. Oh, I get it. I don't Runaway Felix because it's a float that's running away. The foot sweet intensity of prunes combined. The foot, when you say foot, you mean it's supposed to be smell on the foot or it smells of foot? Intensity of prunes combined with the earthy aroma of raw nuts. Oh. The draw is a little bit on the tight side. A little bit tight. A little bit. Tony's with us. What's going on, man? How are you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. The aromatic part of it, the smell of the smoke is, I don't know, it's all right. It's all right. Rusty Chair's cold draw, chocolate prune, dried fruits, and subtle hints of dried apple or cedar. I can maybe sense some cedar. I'm not getting much fruit though. But we'll see. We'll see. Oh, and wrapper is Ecuadorian Connecticut shit. I knew. See, I knew it was Connecticut. Totally called it. Totally called it. I'm totally an expert at this. And Nicaraguan binder. Okay, awesome. Maybe there's a little bit of apple, but there's definitely dry. There's kind of dry. Maybe dry nuts could be something there. All right, starting off. Filler is Honduran grown by Plasencia and Nicaraguan. Ah, all right, awesome. I wonder if Plasencia makes this for them. I would definitely say there's a nuttiness to the cigar. But none of the spice that you typically would think were from Nicaraguan cigars. It doesn't have that spiciness. It's a bit lighter, a bit smoother than that. See how it goes with the coffee. All right. Tony's having the LFD 30th, and yes, the Diet Cherry Pepsi. Awesome. Tony and myself and Brian went up to a place called, what did we go to? What was it called? We went to a cigar lounge up in, what was it? Palmyra, Pennsylvania. Tony kind of mentioned it on the live stream at the end of the live stream last week about went up to this place. What was it called? Oscars. Oscars. Oh, here we go. Rusty says 6x52, age 4 years, Tabacalera San Jeronimo. Okay, good. Yeah, Oscars. So Oscars was a nice place. Like it was interesting. Like we went to a place in Lidditz, PA, a couple weeks before that, and then so evidently for whatever reason in this part of Pennsylvania, central PA, around Hershey and all that, people are spending money to build cigar lounges and kind of nice. Like this place that you walk in, it's kind of in this, not a strip center, but kind of a commercial building. And it's a little bit on it's the build out somewhat is relatively simple, right? So a lot of big drywall, but I thought that the way they handled the drywall was really quite tasteful. They just had this drywall, but what they did is they had this really dark smoky gray paint that kind of has a little bit of gold in it, looks like. And then they put sconce lightings every intervals with some TVs, and they put around the sconce. They had these like not crown moldings, but little moldings to kind of like give it like a not wainscoting, but that kind of framing look. Which with the color and the way they did it, it actually kind of it was very classy for drywall. Like it's so easy to like lose character with the drywall, with big expanses of drywall. But they did a real nice job in making it feel nice and a little bit luxurious. So a nice spot. And they have a whole like golf simulator. And golf simulators cost like 150,000, I think. Like one of my friends works for the big golf simulator company downtown, and she was like, yeah, they're about 100, 150. And I was like, what? Crazy. Now, the place we went to before that in Lidditz is actually, empirically speaking, it's nicer. It's a nicer, more they spent a lot more money. They had a bigger budget. Let's put it that way. And this place, Oscars, that we were there fairly early in the afternoon, and there was really just us mainly. Like maybe there was one or two other people that came at some point. So it's just us smoking, and it handled the smoke fairly well for such a large space. What I found out later from the owner was that they don't do any extraction. It's all filtration. They've got like these big, huge smoke eaters that run that clear the air, and I thought it did a very good job at it. The only problem is that they're big smoke eaters, and they're basically mounted to the ceiling, and they're running at full blast. So they're like doing the maximum, filtration or scrubbing. But because they're running at full blast, it's pretty loud. So there's a lot of noise. It's really kind of noisy. So you add a little bit of music to that and all this white noise from the fans, and you're like, it's a little bit heavy. It's a little bit heavy. But a nice spot if you're up in that area and you need a place to smoke. Not bad. Not a bad place to go. Not a bad place to go. Good call there, Tony. Good call. Let me just rotate around there. So today I was out, and I heard about this place in Arbutus, which is kind of southwest Baltimore, and they do reclaimed slabs. So basically, what this company does, they kind of go out and find trees, urban trees, and take them instead of them going to the dump and like being shredded, and try to purpose them, right? Repurpose them into either dimensional lumber, or they make slabs and sell them to people. And the company works with this. They have a larger thing they work with called carbon smart wood. The guy gave me some samples. He was like, have you heard of this? And I was like, no. And he gave me these samples of these woods, right? Looks like walnut, looks like oak, right? Well, interestingly enough, this is pine. This is oak. And I was looking, and what it's called thermal. It's called thermal. It's called carbon smart wood, thermal oak, thermal pine, and thermal oak. And I was like, wow. I was wondering, is it stained? What are they doing with this? And basically, what happened is that they take the wood and they essentially fire them. So a few weeks ago, I showed you this thing that I've been playing around with called shosugiban, which is the kind of like the more Western Japanese name for it. Yakisugi is how it's called in Japanese, where you take cedar or some kind of wood and you char it, which gives it a fire-resistant coating finish, as well as, generally everything resistant coating after you burned it. This is somewhat similar in that they put them into a kiln and they fire it at a higher temperature. And it was interesting because as he's talking to me about it, he was telling me, because here's the thing, wood that's dried is about 8 to 11% moisture content, which in my world of coffee is very similar, because green coffee is somewhere between 9.5 to 11% moisture. And then when we roast it down and drive out the moisture and do the caramelization thing on it, which is why coffee turns brown. And we basically bring it down to about 2 to 3% moisture. And as he's explaining this to me, he's like, "Yeah, they put them in these kilns, and they basically, heat it up till we get to about 1 to 3% moisture. Like, I guess this is 3, this is the 1, or maybe something like that." And I was like, "What in the world?" I was like, and I'm like, "This is like coffee roasting. It's like roasting of boards of wood." And I was like, "Huh." But of course, as you can imagine, it's not cheap. So they gave me these samples. I wasn't even asking. They were just like, "Here, take the samples." Oh, okay. I'll talk about it on tonight's live stream. And like, for example, this thermal oak, I think, works out, let's say 5 inches wide. So if you're doing decking, right, with decking with it, so 5 inches wide, you know, it works out to be like, it's like what is it, $9? It works out to be about $9 a board foot. Or was it 9.21 a linear foot? So it's pretty expensive. I was like, "Oh, that's expensive." When I worked out the price later, I was like, "Oh, it's kind of pricey." But interesting, right? They just kind of like charred wood. It's like, huh, fascinating, fascinating. I just thought that was kind of fascinating. Thought I would share with you today. George says, "Are you still planning a trip down to Coffee?" No, I was supposed to leave today. I was going to do the show on the road, but then I was like, "Oh, no, do I want to drive 10 hours all the way to Kentucky?" Really, it's like, well, actually, yeah, I wouldn't be. Don't necessarily would have a problem with that, but I do have to. It is my niece's birthday tomorrow, so she was like, "We want to have something," and I was like, "All right, I'll just stay and like hang out," which is good. It saves money. It saves money. I'm not going to spend money while we're on the road. I probably wanted to go to passing through Ohio. I wanted to go to this place called Hartfield Hardware, which is evidently some kind of massive hardware store. Like, where I brought Tony and Brian to Paul B, which I think is pretty massive. This place is kind of like, it makes like puts Cabela's to shame, evidently. It's like there's a drive-through lumber yard. Like, you can drive through the lumber yard and pick your lumber, like a brew through. It's like log through. It's like crazy. I was like, "What? That sounds crazy." I don't know what's going on in Ohio, man. Ohio people, they're kind of crazy over there. Rusty says, "I took a pic of the tasting notes and card and card from Pro." Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And Mom did the same thing. Thank you. I see the notifications popping up on the phone, but I can't look at it from my phone. So Tony says, "For your information, I did not know there was a slab place about half a mile from my." Oh, well, we're gonna have to go check that out. Like, there's a guy about a mile away from me, or 2 miles away, probably technically 2 miles, who also does slabs. I've been buying wood from him. And he's got some nice stuff. Like, and it's all local. Like, he does it like right on his land. It's like, I guess you can't get much more local than that. Yeah, there's always more time. There's always another time. Maybe the rain. So, well, the event that I was planning on attending was that there's this company that I've heard about, that a lot of people in this wood thing talk about, called Lee Nielsen. And Lee Nielsen makes these hand tools like planes and chisels and stuff like that. And it's really supposed to be some of the nicest quality, but also most expensive stuff out there. But I know nothing about that, right? Like, I know nothing about those things. And I was kind of perusing their website a couple weeks ago, and I noticed they're having a couple events around the country. And there was an event a week or two ago in Florida. There's another one in a couple weeks in Oregon. And the closest one to us was this one in Kentucky this weekend. And I was like, "Oh, maybe I can go to this one in Kentucky." That was what I was thinking. Because basically you go there and they have everything in their catalog, and you can like play with them and use them. And I was figuring, well, I'll ask these guys how to use it, because I have no idea really how to use those things. So this cigar so far is okay. I mean, it's smoking well enough. A bit of chocolatiness right now on my palate. It's not terribly fantastic. Like, we've had some fantastic cigars recently, right? Like the last few weeks. Last week, the Tatuai was very good at 85.75. What else do we have here? The other one, the one from Japan, the Japan Cigar Club, 87. So we've had some nice stuff. The Garcia, 87.75. What else have we had? Let's go back a little bit here. What else? I've got the whole stack here. So there's been some nice stuff, and not bad, but not bad. Like this is one, right now, my feeling is this. My feeling of this cigar, it's nice. It's one of those cigars that, like, if I had a bunch of them, that I could just smoke whenever, that would be nice. Like, I don't think it's very challenging or very, like, it doesn't really need you to occupy, like, your mind space or you're thinking about it, right? You just kind of sit back, enjoy it, just smoke, talk, drive, whatever you're doing. It's just a nice accompaniment. It's pleasant for that. Oh, don't forget the Ferio Tego Suma. How can you forget the Ferio Tego Suma? That's one of the best ones we've ever had. It is the best one, right? It's not the highest, right? Let me see here. There's somewhere in here. I'm not going to look at here. Rare pink, lightweight heavy. What is this one? Don Carlos Personal Reserve. The LFD, 30 years. I mean, lots of lovely. We've had some very Pepin Garcia 20th anniversary. Good Lord. Like we've had some really solid smokes this season. George says, "Holy Moses, I burned through the Olmec like me onto the wow, you've already plowed through that. It's only been 30 minutes. You must have been had smoking before we started." George says, "So tonight the coffee is the deep complex." Yeah, it actually, I think the chocolatey in the cigar and the bitterness of the coffee is nice together. Oh, speaking of which, that reminds me. Last week I was up in Pennsylvania, Oxford, Pennsylvania. I was visiting a place called Hearn Hardwoods, where I got to see some crazy woods. But there's a farmer's market there, and I was like, oh, look at this. They have little pies. And I grabbed this pie, and it's just been sitting around. George says he started at 7:25. Wow. Oh, okay, a little bit early. Okay. Speed is discouraged. I know. Sometimes you just love it so much. You just can't help yourself. I can't help myself. So I picked this up. I think it might be a nice accompaniment to our coffee and our cigar. From a place called King's Bakery. King's Bakery in Oxford. Little tiny market. So $3. $3 for this little piece of pie. Pecan pie. So not bad looking. Look at that. Tony says, George, someone said that the Suma was a tweak of one of the old Nat Sherman blends. Is that true? I mean, like, I haven't smoked many of Nat Shermans in many years. And when I smoked them back in the day, I was still pretty new to the cigar world. I wonder how if that's the case, I wonder how I'd have responded to that. All right, we're going to break this open here and try this pie, like warm apple pie. Should just shove my finger in it. Maybe a little bit. Not as sweet as I was expecting. Nice reserve sweetness. And sometimes you get these pecan pies, and they're just sweet. This is not that sweet. I'm pleasantly surprised. I wish I started eating this a week ago. George says, Soma was an original blend by Michael. There are other lines in the FD portfolio that are tweaks in the old Nat Sherman lineup. Ah, okay. I mean, that Soma was so good. Like, I can't imagine having like a Nat Sherman that was like that and just missing it all this time. Oh yeah, that's a nice combination. Now let's have the cigar with it. Rusty says, Georgia was the host series from Nat Sherman that had a light green band. I don't remember the Metropolitan, really, the Metropolitan series. And from my what I recall, there was Metropolitan, and then there was a Timeless later. And the Metropolitan had basically the same band, but different fields of color behind the center of the band. And I remember liking the gray background of the Metropolitan series. I don't remember what that was, but good memory. Excellent, excellent. Tony says that's what I thought because like me, he's never had a Nat Sherman that smoked like that. Yeah. I've not had a Sherman that was like that good. The Sherman's like the gray series was good. I liked one of the Timelesses. But man, that's super. George Shem says that Pan American from Nat Sherman was solid. Oh, I don't think I ever had one of those. And Rusty says that was the first series of cigars I smoked from Nat Sherman. I think I have in my Tupperware one last cigar from the host. Ooh. I don't know if it's one of those things. Should you save it or should you just savor it? Savor it. Just eat. Just smoke it. What are you waiting for? Tomorrow is not guaranteed, right? That's what they say. George says, yes, guys, that was all, Michael. Next time he's hanging out with me, I'll have him tell you the story. Yeah, let us know. We want to know. We want to know. All right, this is a very nice pecan pie, the coffee, the cigar, very nice together. So how was your guys' week? Anything interesting happen? That was about as interesting as it got for me, I think. We went to see that cigar shop or the cigar lounge in Palmyra, went to the hardware store, had lunch at this place in nearby the hardware store to have Lebanon bologna, which is evidently some kind of bologna that is native to Ephrata, Pennsylvania, that whole like Amish area. Rusty says, I remember when Nat Sherman used to send out catalogs, and I used to love reading the stories in it. Oh, I never got there. I didn't even know that. I never got one. Devin says, I got some ouds for the first time. We're talking about the wood, right? The wood that you burn for like incense. That's really popular with like Middle Easterners. Is that correct? Like if that's the case, I've been to some oud stores. Like oud is like in Saudi Arabia, oud is they're very serious about their oud. Like you just can't be like messing around. Like I got scolded by my friends. I went to this oud store by myself and I bought a little bit. And I told my friend, I said, I bought some oud. And he was like, where did you buy it from? He's like, no, you have to come to me. You have to come I'll get the stuff from my family. We have the proper oud. That's not good oud. I was like, what? They're very super. Oh, yes, they are. Okay, that is it. Okay. So how are you like utilizing it? Are you burning it? Actually, the stuff that I bought from the oud store, I never burned, just because like it's kind of expensive. And I buy these. I used to buy. Well, I haven't done it in a while, but I would buy like the cheap oud. Right? You can buy cheap oud and put it on the charcoal and burn it. It's kind of got the oudish smell. Like, well, it's interesting. When I first started going to Saudi Arabia in 2018, everywhere you went, they're burning oud. Like everywhere, like it's everywhere. In the hotel rooms, in the hallways, in the restaurants, in the shopping centers, everywhere. Storefronts, oud is burning everywhere. But as time progressed and as society changed, I kind of noticed there was less oud happening in general. George says those catalogs were usually sent out over the signature of Nat's son Joel. Ah. Devin says maybe make a cologne, but I want to wear it straight. I thought about putting a dab on a cigar and smoking it. Oh, that might be kind of interesting. But yeah, oud as a fragrance, very popular in the Middle East. Just kind of, and you get the perfume like the from these guys, man, expensive. Like the Saudis, man, they spend some money on that stuff, but they love that smell. They love it. They love it. Mom says I have a few oud fragrances. I mean, the oud is a nice woody aroma. George says oud is also an ingredient in many fragrance products. Ah, I'm fascinated by these places where you can go and get your custom fragrance made. One of my favorite fragrances over the years when I was, especially when I was younger, for whatever, I'm sure I don't know who made it for them or whatever they did, but there was a fragrance from Ettore Bugatti. Came out in the 90s. I had a bottle of it. It's long gone, but it was my favorite, very citrusy. I like citrusy for a lot of stuff, but it's gone. And I was always kind of like, and they stopped producing that many, many years ago, but I always kind of thought like, oh, it'd be nice to go to one of these places, bring that bottle. Hopefully there's some residual aroma in the bottle and maybe have them, conjure up a copy. But I can't imagine that's very like price friendly. George says, but the actual essence is very funky. Oh, I've not smelled the essence. I've only smelled the burning wood. Mom says that the hardcore ones smell like, and maybe I haven't had the hardcore ones. Yeah, but the Saudis, they're very serious. Or I guess people in the Middle East, very serious about that. And I wonder, I don't know if the women are as serious about it, but definitely the men are serious about that stuff. Devin says that it depends on the oud and processing. It's the equivalent of Sumatran coffee, that there are no clean fruity and they're all earthy. Ah, okay. So Devin, where do you go to buy oud in America? Are there like oud stores in Florida? There's this one particular oud store that I've been to, the one that I bought from. That's kind of like a chain in Saudi Arabia. I don't even know what it says because it's all in Arabic. But it has a certain look. So if I saw it somewhere in the world, I'd be like, oh, that's that place. The oud. I even have the little burner. Although mine's a folding travel one, right? It's acrylic and it folds up and you put the little like stainless steel cups you can put the on top where you have the for the charcoal. I was always thinking about buying one of the big wood ones, but I never did. I thought, what am I going to do with that? I have no idea what I'm going to do with that. George says, I believe Bacardi actually used synthetic components from McCormick flavors right there in Baltimore. Oh, interesting. Devin says you got it online and you got to know, you always have to know a guy when it comes to quality oud. I was scolded for not using my connections. So the cigar, fine. It's not the, it's not, it's not like shooting at me. It's not fanfare. It's just performing as a cigar might. Just On and on. Tony says, aren't the Ood Doctor Who villains? Yes, yes, there is. The Oods are the ones that hold the orb. They have that kind of like tentacles that look like they're from Star Wars. They're also called Ood, but they don't smell like wood. I don't know. I don't know what they smell like. They smell like, I don't know, aliens, I guess. George says, you weren't rushing through that cigar, unlike some recent selections. I mean, it's like I said, it's a decent cigar. It's a good cigar. But it's not the cigars we've had. Nowhere near the other cigars we've had. But I think we're pacing all right. We're at 46 minutes now. Yeah, I do believe they're called Oud. I'm pretty almost positive. Almost positive. I feel like I'm with this pie. I'm gonna power through the coffee first. But all three together are actually quite enjoyable. So what I've been doing today, the garage is kind of messy at the moment because I didn't clean up before I started because I've been working on some projects. Like I've been thinking about this for a little while, and I finally decided to do it. That's why I just kicked it out this afternoon. This is a bonsai stand for my bonsai, right? So kind of like it's all made out of oak. Actually, these panels are oak from a pallet. So I rescued these from a pallet, and then the feet oak is white oak that I got from a tree locally. No, actually, at my friend's house. So a little bit of the sapwood there, right? Not perfect. Like it's if you look at the details, it's not perfect. Right? It's not. But if you don't look too closely, not bad. And I like this kind of like knotty grain here. As you can see, like there's holes from the pallet holes here. But I've been thinking about this. I was looking at this and I was like, oh, I like the voids. I like voids for some reason. Voids and knots. Like I don't want it to be too perfectly clear. Like, and then I've been playing now lately with tongue oil, like pure tongue oil. And I was doing this, I have this table that I've been working on with that's made of cherry. And I did the tongue oil treatment on it like about almost 2 weeks ago. It looked all right. But as time has gone by, and the guys told me the tongue oil will like develop, and it really has developed. Like it's got a lot more, like it's much more interesting now than it was when we started. And I was like, oh, very nice, very nice. George says, hopefully in the future, your eye will be drawn to the trees in their mini perfection, not their support. Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, and it's not supposed to be, and that's why this is much more simple because you don't want to draw too much attention to the base. The base should just, deliver the tree. And like so many sizes. I think I'm going to, the bonsai meeting is this weekend. I wanted to try to kick it out and, get some feedback from the masters at the club and see what they think about it. So George, if you're around Saturday, I might try to swing by if I end up going down to Springfield for the meeting. Yeah, this is one of those cigars where you just smoke it and just it's pleasant enough. Like it's smoother. It's smooth, but it's not very like I would say it's kind of nondescript. It's kind of like a nice medium to mild smoke. Not terribly complex, but not boring and not like disappointing. just not a banger. And then something else I'm working on today is I got this. You can see in the clamps there. I got a bunch of pine that I've dimensioned out. I was watching. That's just leftover stuff that I need to either throw away or burn or consume. But I was watching these videos about these steak stools. Like you put steaks, like sticks, in them at like 15-degree angles, and you make a stool out of it. So I was like, oh, maybe I should try that. So that's what I'm gluing that up, and maybe we'll start to shape it out. Maybe you could join me at Ho Ho for another dinner. There's certain Ho 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 Ho. What is the Ho Ho? Maybe. I don't know if I could stay out all night long though, because the meeting starts at 9 a.m. So I'm like, oh, 9 to noon. But I haven't decided. I have this. It's one of those things that's like, do I feel like do I feel like making the hour-and-a-half drive? I just drove down there last Sunday. Drove down to Fairfax Springs or Fairfax something. I troll Facebook Marketplace, right? It goes back to the Festool thing. So we went to Cigars on Saturday. Sunday morning, I'm sitting there in my underwear on the computer, trolling Facebook Marketplace. And here's this dude. Festool saw and vac. $100. $100? What? So I messaged him. I said, hey, man, what's the deal? Are you serious about this? He's like, yeah, man. The vac and the saw, 100 US bucks. I was like, dude, hold on to it. I'm on the way. I'll be there in 2 hours. So I jumped in the car, drove all the way down there, and I met the guy. Kind of crazy Korean dude, like about my age, or about our age, a little bit, but crazy. You know, those guys are a little bit crazy. But evidently, he was a cabinet maker, and he was like, "I'm moving my house, and I need to get rid of equipment." And so I got this saw from him. Well, Andrew's house. We called it. Oh, really? For another, on Saturday night? Mm. Gosh, that's hard to say no to. All right, I'll let you know. I'll let you know. That sounds like a nice time. George says, "Did you meet the guy while still in your underwear?" I did. So it turns out. So here's the thing. Right? I'll show you. Where is it? Okay. Now this thing is pretty old. According to the manufacturer's plate, it's made in 2003. So it's like 22 years old. I did clean it up. It wasn't this nice. But this is the Festool ATF 55. When Festool first came to the United States, this was the track saw that started it all. And I was like, oh, sounds good. And so when this first came out, evidently I looked it up, $375. But it works. See, blade works. I cleaned it up yesterday. I was working on I figured I better clean it up nice. So it's fully clean and like super cherry. And the nice thing about it, I can use it on the track that I have. So it works with new generation tracks. You just kind of adjust it to fit. And yeah. So not too bad. $50. should probably sell it. I'm thinking about just sell it. There's a couple guys that were selling like the same model, same era. Sold it for like $300. I was like, $300. What was that? Josephus says you could sell the Festool and use the profit to purchase some Festivus cigars by Cigar Clowns. Oh, sounds like an interesting proposition. I'm actually working on a video comparing this one to the current generation. So once I finish that, then I probably will sell it because I don't really need more saws. Like I need to purge. I'm trying to purge. Like I'm trying to purge the wood that I have. I got too much wood here. So I need to get rid of the wood. So how's everyone's cigars coming along? Anything good? Anything really wild? Devin, how's the Padron? I don't think I've had this 47 Padron. So Josephus, I'm curious, Josephus Comedy. So are you out on the circuit doing stand-up? Is that it? Because that's sounds like a fascinating thing to do. I think those that do like stand-up is really a lot of admiration for them because trying to read a crowd and gauge what they're going to laugh about, man, tough. Joseph said, I'm an open micer. Oh, awesome. It's awesome. How's it going? How's it going? It's good. Are you, where are you in the country or in the planet? And it's just, I just started a cigar review channel, show my, oh, awesome. What, anything good lately that you've enjoyed? I'm interested. I don't really get to watch a lot of cigar YouTube. I don't even know if there's much cigar YouTube out there. Like, I remember when, what's his name? Cigar Obsession used to have a YouTube channel. And then for whatever reason, YouTube like wiped out his channel completely. And he was all pissed off. He went off to, I think he started a new channel on, what's it, Rappler? Whatever, there's an alternative site that a lot of people went to, Rockler, huh? And then even Jeremy Sayers, I noticed a couple years ago, he changed his channel. Like that's why this show is on this channel, the Ono Live channel. It's not on, it used to be on the main channel, but now it's on this channel. We changed a couple years ago because that happened to Cigar Obsession and to Jeremy Sayers. And it was partially because of Jeremy was talking about how like, you know, he was worried about, you know, YouTube pulling down his main channel. And I was like, oh, that would be not that my main channel is like doing, it's not like I got millions of subscribers, but all the work, you don't want your channel to be pulled down for whatever reason. Oh, mom says Rumble. That's right, Rumble. We're gonna take this off of here. Joseph says, I'm in North Carolina. My cigar review show is in the style of silent films. I've done an Ashton and Oliva Serie V Melanio review so far. Oh, awesome. So are you saying, is it like a silent review show? Is that right? Just kind of smoking and maybe captions, is that it? Or I'll have to check it out. Devin says the Padron is good, not great. Oh, that's too bad. Reminds me of the time when we had the whole rage of like Connecticut. Like the Underground Shade came out, and then like everybody was coming out with Connecticut Shade like rappers. And I remember Padron came out with their Connecticut shade, and I was actually in San Diego that week, and I stopped by this place called Liberty Cigar, and they had it, and I picked it up and I smoked it, and it was dog rocket, just dog rocket. I was like, this is just $17 for like, I was like, oh. I know George Brightman said that they have reformulated since that time. I have not revisited yet, mainly because I was a little bit salty about that. I'm a little bit salty about that. I'm like, hey man, you got this great reputation. You came out with this, and it was categorically disappointing. Like I was like, oh, this is bad. Like I've never really had bad Padrones, but this was like bad. And the fact that they changed their blend, obviously it just wasn't that good, unfortunately. The Damaso, yeah, the Damaso. What a shame. What a shame. The Silent Cigar Review show. That's actually quite fascinating. I'm quite interested. Mom says, but I see him post last night. Looks like he's back on YouTube. Oh, are we talking about a cigar obsession? Is that right? Tony says the LFD is phenomenal. Oh, awesome, awesome. George says you should revisit them. Man, at some point, but you know what? I guess I have been refusing to try it again, mainly because I spent $17, which actually this is the time before we did the show, I think, and so like spending more than $13 was like a big deal to me. Like I was like really irritated to spend more than $13. I actually kind of irritated to spend more than 10. To sort of spend 17 and then it to be just like categorically bad. I was like, oh, we'll do it again. Joseph said, I've only had Padron Edmundo that looks like a certain Monte Cristo cigar. Padron 3000 or something like that. It wasn't mind-blowing like some. I mean, I don't think that, personally speaking, I don't think that the 1000 series, the Padrones, like especially like the Padron like 3000, 5000 naturals, they're good. I like the Maduro versions, which are based, and my understanding from when I went to the factories that they just get darker wrappers. I don't know if they really make a big difference, but I think they're quite enjoyable. And not like mind blowing, like this is like the most amazing cigar, but just like a solid, enjoyable cigar. And I've said this on the show before, but like I was in Nicaragua one year, and I was flying to San Salvador, and I was out of cigars, and I was like, man, I need to get some more cigars. So I stopped on the way out of Nicaragua at the airport. In the departure lounge, there is at the time it was just a Padron kiosk. I think now they have a Padron store. So I bought a 5-pack of 3000 Maduros. And then I took them with me to Salvador, and I was sitting at the hotel that night smoking one of them. I was like, oh my God. The very best Padron 3000 I've ever had in my life. And I realized it probably because it came directly from the factory and was like optimal. It was the most optimal condition of a cigar that I've had pretty much ever. And it was like so fantastic. But they're not always like that because, they travel and then what can you do? What can you do? Joseph says, I'm chasing the Cameroon Dragon at the moment. Oh, I've not had that. Oliva, New World, CAO are all great, but the pure African Cameroon by Banff is amazing. By Banff. I'm not familiar with Banff. Oh yeah, man. Steven's with us. What's going on, Steven? How are things down in Phoenix? What's happening? Well, I think we're pacing well. We're about an hour into the show now, so nice. I think today, all of it together, very nice. And the coffee, the pecan pie, this Felix come together nicely. None are competing with each other for flavor or attention. Just coming together in an enjoyable fashion. Tony says 1000 series is a 2.5-year-old tobaccos, well aged, great construction for $10. What's not to like? Agreed. Very nice cigar. You know, I've always liked Padrones, right? Like especially like the 1926 or 1964s. And I never had a bad 64. Like I've always had very nice 64s. Always consistently great experiences. Except for once. The one time we brought it to this show, it failed. I was like, what? I was totally expecting to give it high marks and like great experience. And then I don't know what happened. I don't know what it was. Maybe the store that I bought it from, maybe their conditions weren't very good. Maybe that one anomalous cigar in the whole box. I was like, oh man. It's just like when we had the Arsenio. It's like, oh man. You're hoping to give great scores and great reviews, but then you're like, oh, it just didn't happen that time. It just didn't happen. And the one nice thing about Padron is that it says I've had Padron many times over the years. Well aware of their cigar and their quality. It's like one of those things where you're like, well, this one didn't turn out well, but it's normally very good. Tony says, Josephus, no need to chase Cameroon, just get the Mirfel. No doubt about that. That's a great suggestion. George says, totally right. All Padron deliver excellent value regardless of their price point. Agreed. Well, except for that 2017 Damaso. That was not good value. Steven says, Phoenix is overcast. Cool, nice, and smoky aroma craft. Ooh. Which RoMa are you smoking? I'm looking forward to the event next Thursday. And like I said, next Thursday, we're going to be at Capital Cigar with the show because Sean Coleman is in town for RoMa Craft. Is going to be having an event at Capital, so we'll be hanging out there. We're not going to do any like formal reviewing like we normally do here. We're just going to be hanging out because you can't really talk cigars in a situation like that. It's just too madness. And evidently, from what George was telling before, Mike Rosales might also be showing up. So good times. If you have time to come up to Capital, should be a fun time. Brian's with us. What's going on, Brian, man? How are you doing? What's going on here? Come on now. It doesn't want to change. There we go. Athens says there are actually two blends of Damaso. When the second band is red, it's a little punchier, and when it's white, it's milder. So does that mean they kept the original band, the original Damaso, or they changed the Damaso? Because when Damaso first came out, I think it was the white band, and that was not to my liking. George says, again, my point regards your Damaso experience. You were paying the extreme California OTP. I mean, perhaps, but it was just not a good cigar. Like it was under any, even if I paid like $7, it would be like, that was terrible. It was objectively terrible, a cigar. Perhaps underscored by the fact that it cost $17. But I think that those cigars were all, even out here, was pretty expensive. But it's one of those things where, like, you have this cigar, it was really very bad, and you just didn't enjoy it. So it's like, why revisit something that you've already had that you didn't enjoy when there's so many other beautiful cigars to have that are going to be good, even amongst their own line, like 3,000, 5,000, Maduro, 64, 50th anniversary. All lovely smokes. Athens says the main band is always white. The second band changes with some red accents. I'm not sure of the original blend though. Okay, oh, fair enough, fair enough. Tony says, rule of three, don't discount it. I'm not spending, was it 17? So what, almost 60 bucks just to know that I don't like a cigar? I'm not doing that. If I'm going to spend 60 bucks, I'm going to go buy the Meerfeld Mare and smoke the hell out of it and have an amazing time. Brian says, I was thinking of trying the Damaso again, but you were pointing, yeah, I mean, why? I don't know. I found it so, I mean, it was one of those things where it's like, there was something off about it. Like when we did the 64 review here on the show, there was just something off about that cigar, right? We knew that. So there's, you know that it's going to be, if you smoke it again, the chances are it's going to be great. But the blend itself was one that I just didn't groove with. Speaking of not grooving with a blend, like I've kind of mentioned this in the past, and you know, I've always been a little bit uncomfortable like stating this because it seems so like in the face of like conventional wisdom, right? But I've historically I've been a big fan always of Tatuaje cigars. Like peach cigars and pepin cigars from under the Tatuaje brand have always been pleasers to my palate. Been a big fan of his for many, many years. But where I've always struggled was with my father's stuff, the regular line, the Pepin Garcia stuff, the Jaime Garcia lines. Like those were always the ones that I always like struggled with. Like I've been gifted boxes, I've smoked all kinds of stuff, and I've like tried it over and over again. But there's always something about it that just doesn't groove with me. And I know everybody, a lot of people, my friends, they all love it. They love it. And I just can't find that groove, right? I'm smoking. So we're at the Oscars in Palmyra this weekend, and they had another Padron, my father, one that I had never really had before. Tony, if you remember the name, I can't remember the name offhand, and I can't look up my phone because, well, I'm streaming. Let me know what that is if you recall. And so I was like, so I tried it. Green band, nice cigar. And, you know, a few weeks ago, we had the 20th anniversary from Pepin Garcia. Amazing cigar. Amazing. Fantastic. One of the best cigars we've ever reviewed on this show. Certainly the very best Pepin Garcia cigar I've ever had. But as I'm sitting there smoking this cigar, I'm with Tony and Brian, and again, there's that flavor. There's that character of Pepin cigars that I just don't find to be in my groove. And I'm trying to figure it out what it is. I'm really starting to think, like, well, what is this? And we're talking to Tony. I said, you know, is it like an acidic, like a brightness? But it's not a brightness. I don't think it's a brightness. Like it wasn't. That wasn't a correct descriptor, right? But I couldn't think of what it was. And Tony broke it down perfectly. He was like, "It's minerally." I was like, "Minerally. That's exactly it." The common thread with these Pepin cigars, Garcia cigars, that I'm finding difficulty grooving with is this minerality in the cigar that I just don't like. Like, I just don't like it. Like, I'm just like, I'll try the cigar and I'll enjoy as much as I can, but that minerality just doesn't groove on my palate. And then realized that the 20th anniversary is a cigar that doesn't have that minerality. It's like they took whatever it is, the element that they had, the minerality, they took it out, and fabulous. So I wonder, like, whatever this component is, George, you might know what this component is that gives this mineral. What tobacco is that? Like, it's not in Tatuaje. There's something about their blend that they put in, because I would presume that this minerality is something that they really like. So I think I finally figured out what it is about my father's that I just don't really like, which is great to know. Because then now I can know that. Athens says, I personally like the Damaso and particularly the number 8, the 5.5 by 46. Awesome. Don't get me wrong. Just because I'm telling you that I had a bad experience and I don't like it and I maybe will never try it again, doesn't mean that you shouldn't, right? I'm all about trying for yourself right? You can only listen to what I have to say if you ever listen at all, and just consider what I like. And you may find yourself in disagreement. Like you may listen to what I have to say about certain cigars, and you're like, well, that I hated that cigar. Like, and if you find that you hate what I like consistently, then you know that our flavors, our palates are different. Then there's then you can have like understanding of what I like and what you don't, what you like, right? Then it says the last third of the Padron pulling through, it has that powdery Padron note that I was expecting throughout. Oh, so it just didn't have it, and now you're starting to enjoy it. Oh yeah, there we go. The Vegas Cubana. Yeah, good cigar, like quality wise, overall, good. Like, solid, well done, but very good cigar. Just has this minerality that I don't like. Yeah, not, I don't know if it's necessarily metallic. I think it's more mineral, like a mineral kind of essence to it. Athens says, I hate that metallic taste. So do you find yourself not enjoying like Don Pepin Garcia cigars because of that or that metallicness? I think it's more mineral than metallic, but of course everyone has their, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. We're here to celebrate that. But I've always kind of like, I never really sat down to figure out what it is about those cigars that I just didn't groove with. And like, so it's always one of those things where like, I've been less than enthusiastic about them, but I couldn't really tell you why until now. Now I can tell you why. But Tatuai, whatever they're doing with Tatuai, I always find those flavors to be to my wheelhouse. George says, I believe we need to stage a multi-cigar blind test, Nicaraguan blends with CT wrappers. Whether you, I'm very happy to try that. Mom says, I keep buying them. It's the bands that catch me all the time. Oh, for my father, they do make nice bands. I mean, my father's, they got a great operation. Like I got to tour it. I toured my father's factory in Esteli when it was brand new. I happened to be down in Matagalpa. Oh, I was in Manila actually. And Pete was in town in Esteli, so I called him up and said, hey man, are you in town? He's like, yeah. I said, can I come up and check it out? He said, yeah, come on up. So I had a friend drive me up from Manoa to Esteli. We went to my friend grew up with the Plasencia family. So we went to Plasencia, toured that, and then went over to meet Pete and my father and got a tour of like beautiful facility. They're a fantastic company. Just there's that character. George Shem says, this blows my mind. I have the palate of a 2-year-old child. Never got any. Well, it's one of these, and I don't think you have to like be able to do all these tasting notes. I don't think that's important. I do it because I have to talk to you guys about something for 2 hours at a time. And what I do professionally in the coffee world, I kind of have to do that as well. So there's an impetus for me to actually babble about what flavors are present. Like I have to talk to customers about, well, this is what it tastes like, right? To give them an idea. Otherwise, I just be like, well, it tastes like coffee, which isn't very helpful for most people, right? You want them to have this idea like, oh, it's kind of like chocolate with nuts and a little bit of fruit, but they may never taste that. They never know what you really want, right? This is what I think. Like for most people, do you like it? Yes, great. Do you not like it? No. So like I have never really enjoyed my father for many years. It's just that I finally had the moment to sit down and figure out why. Like, what is it about this cigar that I just don't really like? Because otherwise, it's just kind of like, oh, what do you think about the My Father stuff, the Pepin Garcia stuff? It's okay. Now I can be like, well, it's good, but I just don't like the minerality. And if you like the minerality, even better. Athens says, I don't enjoy the majority of My Father, to be honest. Oh, everyone's coming out of the woods now. Expect some limited releases, which are incredible. Oh, except something is some reason. I found that mineral taste in many cigars towards the end, especially. Yeah. I mean, yeah, and I think it's all right to acknowledge, to be aware of, like, you don't like certain things about certain flavors, so you don't gravitate towards those cigars. I think that's perfectly fine. Because I don't think it detracts from the quality of the cigar itself. It's just that it's your palate just doesn't like it. Athens says, I'm sure the tobacco has to do something with that, but other factors may play in as well. I mean, I wonder, like, there's perhaps minerality may come from, the soil content in the content of the soil, and that gets transferred to the plant, which transfers to. But I don't know. I mean, like, and the reason I say that is because we, like, I say, like, I do like Tatuaje, and that's made by the My Father factory for Tatuaje. So they have access to the same tobaccos. They're just blending it differently. So whatever, and maybe Pete's the kind of guy that doesn't like minerality as well. So when he blends the cigars with pepin, or under pepin, whatever, he's not putting that whatever that component that puts the minerality in the cigar. Maybe he's deleting that. Like, it's not, the minerality is not something I get, like, in the RoMa Craft series as well. Devin says, George Shem, you have to go around tasting things, lick a garden hose, taste the dirt. Go on, you could taste the dirt, taste the dirt. I mean, it was threatening to go out for a moment. I mean, we're talking about a generation of people here that did eat dirt when we were young. We did. We really did. Because, we're out there playing, falling down, getting beat up. George says, I drank from a garden hose all my life. Love it. I haven't drank from a garden hose in a long time. I'm scared to drink from the garden hose now. Like, I can't believe, like, when we were young, like in high school, like, the idea of buying Evian bottled water was ridiculous. Like, why would you buy bottled water? That's stupid. Why am I paying for water? And we buy water, like, by the gallon. It's terrible. And I think the great irony is that we live in, at least those of us here in Maryland, like, we're in Baltimore. Baltimore's water supply is excellent. Like, the flavor of the water here is awesome. Like, it's one of the best in America. I don't know why we bottle so much of it. Like, why are we buying bottled water? Sure, I like Poland Spring and Deer Park. Sure, I like the artificial flavor of Dasani. Like, I like the idea that you can go to anywhere in the world and get Dasani. It tastes the same because it's formulated, but we don't need to have that, really. Now, where I live, we're on well water, and the cigar has gone out. Disappointing. George says, I never buy bottled water. Smart. You shouldn't. But here where I am, we are on well water, and it's pretty darn hard. Like I can taste it. Like, it's like, and maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. I don't like the water from the well because it's really hard, very minerally. Maybe that's part of it. And I feel like I haven't really been talking that much. So I'm a little bit disappointed when, we haven't kept up with the scoring. I think good plus. Good plus. Good plus. George says the Poland Spring comes from a concrete pipe sticking out of a parking lot, and no doubt about that. I mean, it's just like when Fiji water came out back in the 90s. Our tobacconist brought it in, and he was like, "This is the Fiji water," and I was like, "It's fancy water from Fiji, kind of expensive." So I bought it. It tastes good. And I was reading the bottle. It says, artisanal well water that where water trickles through the soil and through the volcanic rock of Fiji and gets into the aquifer, and then we bottle it and send it to you. And since I used to live in Honolulu, I was thinking, you know what, man, that just sounds like our tap water in Honolulu. Basically, everything flows through the volcanic rock and into the aquifers, and we pump it out for tap water. So, yeah, I mean, all these places like Poland Spring, what's the one in Arrowhead in California? I mean, they're essentially like the tap water of wherever they're from. I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, at least Coca-Cola goes to the trouble of like reverse osmosis, reverse osmosis, stripping the water completely like it's distilled and then formulating it with, whatever minerals it does to make Dasani. So it's always going to taste the same. Devin says Dasani tastes the same because it's terrible. I still drink from a hose, but it's RO water. Oh, really? You have RO water? You mean at your house you're doing RO? Is that right? Or just you do that in Florida? Florida water equals Florida man. I don't know what that means, but sounds good. Rusty says, but at least the pipe is from Maine. Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like Poland Spring. I'm a fan of Poland Spring. George says, I grew up in well water, maybe because I'm adapted to the mineral taste. I'm numb to it now. That's why. No, I don't know. I mean, like, it depends, right? I think it's going to depend on the actual location of your well and the composition around the well. Like where I am, the well is really hard. Like where I am is not too far from a quarry where they actually mined the marble for the Washington Monument and a whole bunch of stuff like that. So it's probably very hard. Like, the water here is very hard. Like if we don't soften the water, all kinds of stuff goes crazy around here. Rusty says, in my opinion, the horse bottled water is Evian. It's the French, man, or Swiss, or whatever it is. Yeah, they have weird water over there. I mean, this cigar is just good. Good. It's a good cigar. Not great, but it's good. Devin says, yep, I have reverse osmosis and remineralize. Oh, okay. Is the water in Florida that bad that you have to reverse osmosis it? I mean, a lot of my friends, I guess it is because like I'm thinking, I was going to say a lot of my friends will do that for their coffee shops. And one of my good friends used to have a coffee shop in Gainesville, Florida, and he had to do reverse osmosis because he said the water quality was terrible there. And I was like, huh, that's terrible. That's one thing. I've been very lucky here being in Baltimore because our water is such high quality. I haven't had to do anything to it. Like I don't have to do any of that reverse osmosis formulation or anything like that. We just basically filter it. We test it at least once a year. And every time it comes back, it's always like there's, in the world of coffee, there's these particular parameters that the Specialty Coffee Association says this is the ideal water. Baltimore's water is always within those parameters, except for one. There's one thing, there's maybe like 0.005 ppm off. It's such a minor thing. I'm like, I'm not going to, some people might bother with them, but I don't know, that's ridiculous. Devin says it's terrible. They don't filter out the pharmaceuticals and I guess that's Florida for you. Florida's a whole different kind of world. Florida's a different kind of America. Yeah, this cigar, just okay. Now that we're getting towards the end, it's starting to get a little bit of that heavier note, that kind of like tarry note. George says that the pie edition is definitely slowing your smoking time. I guess it does. But I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, we're talking, but I would expect it not to burn out. But like now now I'm feeling it's starting to get a little bit tedious. maybe we can get a little bored. I don't know. George said, gents, I've got to bow out and drop in on Mo's show. Hope to see you. All right. See you then. Have a great one. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, definitely a little more bitterness is coming out now. Maybe I need more pie. I think maybe I need more pie. Almost finished the pie, though. Steven says that smart water is distilled and remineralized for flavor. Don't forget your alkaline, which makes it healthy for you. Oh, makes sense. Smart water sound like one of those. So, Steven, in your part of the world, do you get Arrowhead as well? Whenever I'm in Vegas, I drink the Arrowhead. I kind of like it. I personally think water is a fascinating component. Like for coffee, like a lot of people like are very much in the coffee business. They're very much like, we want to have formulated water so that it's always the same. And I'm like, there's part of me that I get that, but we don't bother formulating water. We just use tap water, filtered tap water, carbon filtered, and then particulate filtered. But I always, and I know places have really hard waters that supposedly taste terrible for coffee. But I always wondered, like, I wonder if that's something to be celebrated. Like if you have a coffee operation, why not celebrate the flavor of the coffee with the water that you have? Like they say New York water is really hard, which is great for bread, but not good for coffee. No, no. I've always kind of thought that if we get this particular type of machine, then maybe we can get waters from different parts of the country, maybe even different parts of the world, and brew coffee with those waters to see the impact and the experience that you would have if you drank that coffee in those cities. Maybe that's something we'll have to work on for the new shop. I think I need to open the glass doors because it's getting a little bit slow now. All right, fan is running. So I got a fan here. This little fan here actually blows everything out the door, or most of it at least. So it's pretty good. I did put up another fan. I got this fan up there. You can see it right here. Right there. It's basically a box fan with a 4-inch MERV 11 filter, which has been working pretty well to keep the dust, the sawdust in check. Not perfect, but pretty darn good. Steven says Parrot has a plant here in Phoenix, and they truck in water from California. I guess that's where all the water comes from, right? Devin says that the whole issue was starting 5-ish years ago was shipping beans would not taste good at home because it was roasted to the roaster's water. Oh, interesting. Oh, so you're saying they were roasting it according to what they were tasting with their water. Okay, gotcha. I can see how that'd be a problem. Huh, you know what? It might be interesting. Thinking about now, maybe talking to some of my friends and saying, "Hey, man, can you send me some of your coffee? Like maybe buy 5 pounds of it, whatever. But more importantly, send me the coffee, but send me a couple gallons of water with it, of your water. Then we can see like what is it if you were at their place, what experience would you have? That's something I'm gonna try. So the cigar's performance now has definitely downturned. More bitter, less pleasant, less enjoyable. A little bit hotter. Overall, it's been pleasant the entire time, except until right about now. Mom, I hope you don't take this that I don't appreciate you sharing these cigars with me. I certainly do. But it's one of those times where like the cigar has taken a turn where I don't know if you've experienced this, but like sometimes you get to a point you've enjoyed a cigar and then it gets to this point where it kind of takes a nosedive, and you're like, you just wish you just want to finish it, right? I think that's where I'm like, if I had bought this cigar, for example, and I was sitting at a friend's house, I'd still smoke it all the way down because I want to get the most money that I can, most of my money out of it. But I'd be like, wish would hurry up. Mom says, hey, I didn't blend it. Thanks. So what else been happening? Anything interesting? I haven't really paid attention to anything. I've just been kind of in my little hole, doing my thing, reading books about woodworking. That's really what I've been doing. I've been reading this book called The Anarchist Design Book, made by a company, published by a company called Lost Art Press. Actually, where the place that the event is this weekend, Lost Art Press in Covington, Kentucky. They do all these woodworking books and really nice manuscripts. And the interesting thing is that if you go to their website, lostartpress.com, some of the books, like this, the Anarchist Design Book, they offer for sale. It's like a nice printed, high quality paper, beautifully bound, really beautiful book, like $40 or something like that. But because they want to disseminate the information, they also offer it as a free PDF download. So you can download the PDF and read the entire PDF. You read the book without ever buying it. It's really kind of interesting. So I've been reading the PDF, which I've been using the Apple Books application on the phone to read. It's really quite a cantankerous thing. I don't know about Kindles like this, but this Apple Books really is. Like if you close it and you're like in like page 85 and then you reopen it, you have to go back. And if you don't put the bookmark, you have to go back, swiping through it. And it's really quite irritating. And I forget where I was. So I'll like end up like maybe 5 pages before I stop. So I end up reading like the 5 pages again. But it's an interesting read, this Anarchist Design Book. And you think, oh, anarchy, but really, it's this guy, the author, he's like we talk about furniture. Like furniture is what's interesting to me, right? So if you look at the furniture, things like the King George, the Queen Anne, Chippendales, all this stuff, and he makes a point. He's like, we have all this cataloging of furniture, very fine furniture, that is the furniture of your jailer, right? Basically, it's the rich people that your furniture that you're studying, right? Opulent, ornate furniture for rich people that regular people can't afford or could never afford. And he's talking about how, like, there's no real, and one of the points he made is that, you see in museum collections all these fancy pieces, and why are the museums collecting these, but not like the furniture of common people? Well, because the benefactors of the museums are the rich, so they want their furniture to be lauded in a museum, which kind of makes sense. And he talks about like simple furniture for regular folk, and I was like, huh. And like Tony says, sorry or make it. And the interesting thing is that that's kind of the gist of this book. It's like you can make your own furniture. You just got to go do it. And I was like, that's part of the reason why I'm working on this thing here, this stool, because I'm interested to learn about this steak thing. So when I went to that American Made Craft Show last weekend before, some of the examples that I saw were these things called Windsor chairs. And I always never really thought about these Windsor steak chairs, right? They look kind of like, it's kind of, you know, boring and old. But as I was talking to this one guy, this guy, Michael, Michael Jury, Jury, he's down in Springfield, Virginia. And anyway, he was showing at the show, and I was talking to him about his work, and he was showing me his work. He's like, "Yeah, this is a Windsor style chair, but I like it's not spun on a lathe, right? The spokes. He like shaves it by hand, and you could feel the facets on the spoke." And I was like, "Oh, that's really amazing." It's like it's amazing. How do you do that? And so. And then I sat in one of his stools, this stool, like this little stool, three-legged stool, but it had such a way of sitting that my back was automatically like posture perfect. I was like, wow, that's really nice and comfortable. Like there's no slouching. You sit there because the way it's designed, you have to sit upright. So it's actually very comfortable. And I asked him about that. I said, "Hey man, I said, your stool is really kind of nice. I really like your stool." And he makes all this other nice furniture. This is like the most simple thing that he's like, "Well, that's actually because of the 10-degree rake." And I was like, "There's a 10-degree rake? That's it? That's the key?" I was like, oh. So I'm thinking, I need to like copy that. I need to like work on that. Steven says, the other California brand of water ships in from Bland, VA, which is used in their entire line of beverages, and it's quite refreshing, and is a new favorite of mine. Liquid Death, super good. I've had Liquid Death. When I went a couple years ago, there's a big YouTube conference called Vid Summit. And I went to it. It's the one that Mr. Beast and all those guys go to. And so I went to it one year in 2022. And it was a nice time. But one of the things they gave out to everybody was lots of Liquid Death. Liquid Death was one of the sponsors. So you drank all kinds of Liquid Death all day long. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I can't say it was bad. Devin says, while I agree with that take, the rich were able to afford the best skill and materials. No, agreed on that. And there's a part of me that does love some of that old stuff. Like when I was younger and I started to have an interest in furniture, like I did end up acquiring a couple pieces back then. This is like 30 years ago. The Honolulu Museum of Art was selling part of their collection, and they had an auction. So I ended up winning this King George II. Was King George II? King George II clawfoot tilt top pie crust tea table. I love that table. It's all dark mahogany. It's been repaired. Like there's this iron piece on one of the three legs. This iron bar is like screwed into it. And I was talking to a appraisal guy one year, many years. And this is like just maybe 20 years ago. And we were talking about furniture, and I was like, I have this piece. It's probably not worth anything because they repaired it. He's like, actually, that might be worth more because they repaired it because that means that it's real from that era. And I was like, oh. But those are very ornate, like those kind of things. Like sometimes, because one of the things they talk about is a lot of the fine woodworking guys like to do reproductions of those things, and I was like, it's kind of cool. But I don't know if I want. I don't know if I have the interest, and I certainly don't have the talent to do that kind of work, like pie crust tables, like to do like these pie, like it's pretty ornate work. You're like, wow, that's really a high level of skill. And I guess they do it with chisels and like, I don't know what they use. I have no idea. But it's interesting. I do have a piece from from the Hawaiian Royal era. There's this table that I really liked back then. Really beautiful table. Little side table called the King Kamehameha V side table, and it's a spindle turned shaft, right? The main leg. really ornate. The legs are kind of nice and all made of koa, Hawaiian koa. So super, super expensive. And now it's like way crazy expensive. Like I looked up the catalog on it. Like if you were to buy one today from a place called Martin and MacArthur in Honolulu, I think their cost now, the price now is like $6,000. Like $6,000. I would never buy that. What I really wanted to buy back then was a all koa pedestal table, plantation style pedestal table. And I met this guy who was a cigar smoker, Wilkinson was his last name, who was a woodworker who made those kind of things. And I remember one time we're hanging out smoking. I was like, dude, how much would it cost to make one of those? And this is like 1993, right? He's like, oh, about 10,000. I was like, $10,000. Or maybe it was 5,000 back then. But I was like, oh my God, can't afford that. It's crazy. Fascinating stuff. Fascinating. I don't know if I showed this on to you guys, but like I watch a lot of YouTube. I've been watching a lot of YouTube on woodworking lately. So I see a lot of people building stuff. A lot of it doesn't really, and it's fascinating to watch, but I don't really feel compelled by any of it. Except this guy recently, a guy named Blackwood Decor on YouTube, a small channel. He made this side table, and I really like the design of it. I was like, I really like that. And he shows you how to make it. Like gives you the plans and everything. I was like, I'm gonna make that. So I went to my guy here who mills his own lumber, and I bought some cherry, and I built it. And I've been using this tung oil on it, and it looks so nice. Like it really brings out the grain. Like you're like, wow, that's really. Like after 10 days or almost 2 weeks of like after the application of the tung oil, like it's deeper. It's like it looks so much better than it did when I first did the application. Like with this bonsai table, this stand, right? This is tung oil on oak, which actually I think right now looks fairly nice with just one application of the tung oil. I think in like 2 weeks it should be really cool looking. So we have tariffs coming, or I don't know if tariffs happened. They were going to have tariffs, and then now they're not having tariffs. But the interesting thing, here's something. So I don't know if you guys did this, but someone pointed out to me today. It's like announced tariffs, stock market starts to plummet. So my friends are like, well, I'm losing hella money right now. The smart people, the rich people, went on a buying spree. Stock market crashes, rich people buy, and then pull back on the tariffs, stock market comes back up. Wealth increases. So the rich have gotten richer. So hopefully you bought more stocks. Hopefully you took your best companies, you bought more. Although if your net worth has been plummeting because your stock value has been plummeting as well, do you have the resources to buy more stock? I don't know. So we're kind of coming to the end. We've kind of gone right now, that bitterness, that kind of like fallow has kind of passed. It's a little bit nicer now. I also saw that this past week we had a probe or something landed on the moon. I was like, oh, all right. We should have done that in like 1982. like for whatever reason, the United States decided after the Apollo program to pull back. They're like, we're going to pull out of Apollo. We're going to stop our exploration, and we're going to get our SUV and fly to Skylab, and then the ISS, and then we stopped that, and now we're trying to do something else. I wonder where we would be if we had kept going to the moon and kept going with our space program when we were young, instead of like stopping. Brian says the bonsai table looked great. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I'm going to take it this way. I'm thinking about taking it this weekend to the bonsai meeting and showing the masters and having them tear it apart, be like, this is just rubbish. Why are you making that? You should just give up now. One of the elders in the group, the more experienced one, Leanne, she's actually from Hawaii, Japanese lady from Hawaii. She's really not. I'm always asking her, what should I do with this? She's like, you should just do this. She's always very practical, and that's the thing. You talk to people that have been doing something and they have mastery over what they're doing. It's always very simple. It's always like, you're thinking too much about it. You're overthinking. You just need to do it. Just go do it. Don't worry about it. It's true. It's true. It's like when I talk to people about coffee. Hey, just do it. Don't worry about that stuff. Do I need to measure? No, don't need to measure. Just brew. Steven says, just think what would happen in the coffee business if tariffs were in place. Well, we don't need the tariffs. Luckily, and one of the nice things about coffee, because the United States is not really a coffee growing country. I mean, we do grow coffee in America. Like we grow coffee in Hawaii, a little bit in Florida, and a little bit in California, but it's all expensive. So coffee has always been a non-tariffed item in America, which is good because we don't have to pay tariffs on it, which has been great. But however, the problem is that everyone has been pushing worldwide consumption of coffee. So especially like in very tea drinking countries like China. And 1 billion people in China who've been over the last 10 years have been learning about coffee and switching to coffee are now consuming coffee at a high scale. So coffee consumption worldwide has increased. However, coffee production has more or less remained stagnant, or in some cases has contracted. Like, for example, there's been bad harvests in Brazil, which is one of the largest producers of coffee in the world. They can't produce enough anymore because they had bad weather. So price of coffee worldwide has skyrocketed. Like, I mean, astronomically. Like in the 20 plus years that I've been in the coffee business, the highest we ever got was like $3. So since coffee is a traded commodity, the base price of coffee is decided upon with the futures market in New York City. There's what we call the C market, and people bid on the C market futures on a per lot basis, so 2,000 pounds. And it's the basis for how coffee is traded worldwide. So the highest I ever got in my existence in coffee was like $3.30 a pound, which was pretty high. Everyone was upset. Then it's been, in recent years, it's been down as low as 75 cents, which is well below the cost of production. The cost of production in most countries is probably about $1.75 a pound. So below that, it's really bad. Now, the base price of coffee is over $4, probably pushing pushing like $4. It's astronomical now. Like, and then since I'm in a sector that is a premium over the C market, like coffee now has escalated like triple. So I'm like, oh God. Like when I place orders for coffee, it's like, holy crap, it's really expensive. To the point where like you try to absorb, like especially coffee world's kind of weird because like we're not a Chick-fil-A kind of business. We should be more like Chick-fil-A in that you try to absorb the cost. You try not to let your costs fluctuate, your prices fluctuate. But we really should be more like Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is what I use them as an example because I used to go to Chick-fil-A all the time. Like in the mornings, I'll go there for breakfast. I had like astronomical numbers in their like frequent flyer program. But what I noticed is that, like I say, the breakfast sandwich, you get the chicken breakfast sandwich with like hash browns and unsweetened tea. That was my breakfast, right? It used to be four something. Over time, it increased up to 6.50, and that was when I stopped, like in 2020. They always had incremental changes, like 5 cents, 3 cents, 5 cents. So over time, it always increased. Whether that's reflective or not of their true cost was irrelevant. They just always increased. Really, what we should be doing in the coffee sector is just constantly increasing. So while there's no tariffs on coffee, the price of coffee is like crazy right now. Tony says the only part of that's rubbish are the brass screws, which should be a hardwood peg to give you contrast. Oh yeah, I know, but I was trying to do it fast, so I got these like screws. I was going to do dominoes, but then that takes a little more work. Plus, I was just free forming this, right? Like, so I just kind of like, especially like the feet, I just kind of free formed them. I was like, how should I do that? So it's more of a like kind of like a more of like a exercise rather than a final design. Because I really don't know what I'm doing. I really don't know what I'm doing. Like, there's just one guy on YouTube. He's got a video on this specific subject, how to make bonsai display bases. And he did it as a live stream. So it's like an hour and a half long. And it's like, oh God, do I want to listen to an hour? I don't know if I want to wade through an hour and a half yet. So I haven't done it, but ideally, man, I mean, and I'll talk to I'm going to talk to the masters about this, and they'll probably be like, yeah, you need to get rid of that. That's just rubbish. But I think ideally, the base will be the screws probably will be covered by the pot. Like I've been working on the bar for the new shop, so I've been needing to make a base. I finally made one of the bases. I needed to make two of them, so I made the first one. And I've been consulting with the guys on the Festool group. This Festool like group of like users, and it's really interesting because these guys, they're all in the field, or they all have practical experience, and they've been kind of like giving me feedback on it. And they're like, well, one guy was like, why did you use pine? You're using a white oak top. Why are you using pine? I said, well, I like the look, and it's easier to work with, and it's cheaper. And in some respects, it's more like a study to learn how to do it. So I built the base and a stretcher, 6-foot stretcher, and there's a slight rack to it, right? Just slightly racked because my joints are not very good. My joints are really kind of poor. Like I did mortise and tenon joinery for it all, and it's all like effed up. Like it's really ugly. Like if you look at the joints, they're really messed up. You're like, God, that's just amateurish, right? But this one guy was like from North Virginia. He was like, try this. Put these things in here, and then it might seize that. So I built these. I built a couple extra parts, put them on, and it stopped the racking. I was like, oh, that's nice and stable now. So everything's a learning process. Better towards the end, better. Right, my fingers are burning. So we'll put that down. So we smoked it all the way down. And at one point, I told you that it was like tedious, and I wanted to be finished with it. But this last portion really was kind of enjoyable, which I think is going to, at least not cause the scores to go down. It's just going to cause the score to maintain. So burn and draw overall has been very good. I'm going to say 8.5. Consistency has been very good, 8. And overall, I'm going to say 7.5. So good plus. So that's going to give us a total score for this cigar, the Privada Runaway Felix, of 76.5 points total. So definitely not that, probably one of the lower scores we've given, but not terrible, not terrible. It's good. 70s are good, is a good score. So like, if we think about it in terms of overall, 70s would be good, 80s very good, 90s excellent, right? So good. It's a good cigar, not bad, not bad. Like I said earlier on, it's one of those cigars that you smoke and it's pleasant enough, not terribly like challenging, not terribly not terribly amazing, just good. All right. Well, I guess that's going to be it for this week. Thank you very much for tuning in and hanging out on the Thursday Night Hang. Back again next Thursday, the 13th. We'll be broadcasting from Capital Cigar down in Bethesda, Maryland, during the RoMa Craft event that Sean Coleman and I think Mike Rosales is coming to. So if you're in the area and you have the time to come down or come up to Capital, come and hang out. We'll be smoking cigars and just kind of hanging out and chatting. All right. So hope you have a wonderful week out there. Good weekend and all that. And I hope you find cigars you're going to enjoy. And back again next week. So see you then.